So let's move on to our next very exciting session of the day, where we are talking about promising growth prospect for Southern Cities commercial realty. So let me introduce our eminent panel. The session is moderated by Mr. Ramesh Nair, CEO India and Managing Director, Market Development Asia for Colliers. With a diverse experience of over 23 years, Mr. Nair's career has been focused on driving transformational change and delivering real estate solutions to domestic and multinational owners, investors, and occupiers across India and South Asia. At Colliers, Ramesh is overseeing the overall direction, strategy, and growth of the India's business. He also drives business development and key relationship management across APAC. Let me now introduce our speakers in an alphabetical order. Let me welcome Mr. Amit Grover, Executive Director of Business, DLF Limited. A seasoned commercial real estate professional with more than 24 years of experience, Mr. Grover has served at vital positions in Ansals, Cushman & Wakefield, Citibank, and has been with DLF for more than 17 years now. He has driven entire growth of DLF's office business and leads planning, strategy, marketing, leasing, building operations, safety, sustainability, and compliance leadership for DLF office business. Our next eminent panel member, Mr. Amit Ramani, is founder and CEO for Office Space Solutions. Mr. Amit Ramani started Office Space Solutions with the vision of revolutionizing the office space delivery ecosystem in India through technology. He has over 18 years of experience in areas of master planning, strategic planning, design management, workplace and business process improvement, Six Sigma-based strategies, and facility planning. He is also an active member of RICS and NASCOM. Our next eminent panel member, let me introduce Mr. Juggy Marwaha, CEO for Prestige Office Ventures. Mr. Marwaha is responsible for leading the growth and development of Prestige Group's office business and is actively involved in the acquisition, design and development, planning, execution, business development, and leasing and sales of the group's portfolio. He has deep relationships with developers, investors, and occupiers across the entire spectrum of the Indian real estate industry. Our next eminent panel member is Mr. Ravi Ahuja, Head Commercial Leasing, L&T Realty. Ravi is an industry leader with experience in multidisciplinary transactions and advisory for occupiers, investors, developers, and government, encompassing office, retail, residential, land, and industrial asset classes. At L&T Realty, he is responsible for establishing the commercial leasing strategy and implementation plan and leads a team that manages an asset portfolio of 12 plus million square feet of ready and upcoming commercial developments. Our next and final member for this panel is Mr. Vinod Rohira, CEO, Mindspace Business Parks REIT. A veteran in the realty industry, Vinod Rohira has been instrumental in leading the development of premium commercial real estate for the company across India. Under his aegis, the company has pioneered the concept of landmark business districts and established brand Mindspace, the self-contained world-class business districts across India. He has been instrumental in shaping prominent shopping destinations as well and uber luxury residential for the group. So this is our eminent panel for this session. And Mr. Nair, I hand it over to you now.
Thanks, Sapna. Am I visible?
Yes, we cannot see a video.
Okay, so seems to be some issue. Sorry about that. I have switched on video. I don't know why it's not showing.
I'll just ask the tech team. Can you please check from your end?
So good afternoon, friends. Sorry for this video issue. Let's try and see if we can fix it. My name is Ramesh Nair. I work with Colliers Asia. If someone had asked me who are my top 10 friends in the industry, this screen of people, all the panelists would be there in that list. All extremely known friends, very important clients. I'd like to thank Realty Plus and Sapna for organizing this. You always manage to get extremely good set of panelists, and even today. So today our section is we're going to be covering the South Indian cities commercial reality. And thanks Sapna for this lovely introduction of our panelists. Our subject is quite timely. And let me start with Amit. Amit, you're the largest in Delhi. You have a lot of new projects coming up in Chennai, Hyderabad. You've been on the lookout for the right projects in Bangalore. Have you seen any slowdown of decisions in the last 1 month with so much of Omicron talk happening? Has there been a slowdown of decision making like what we saw, let's say last May, June?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ramesh, and great to see all colleagues from the industry on this panel. Yes, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say slowdown, that a small deferment in some sense. Yes, most companies had planned a return to work from beginning January. I think largely some of the leaders and the companies had almost issued a diktat that January onwards everyone has to return to work. I think the diktat has been slightly mellowed down to give option, for people to be comfortable to come to work, depending upon how safe they are feeling. But I think at a macro level, what's defining last 2 years, initial first year, we were all looking for directions, but I think last 6-8 months, the things have been reasonably clear as to what we're going to see the world ahead. And I think 3-4 mega trends which are appearing, and that's going to define not just South India, I think India as a whole. One is that return to work is not universal. It's depending upon certain cities have showing a different trend and certain industry segments showing a different trend compared to others. Likewise, it's a reflection of what's happening in the West Coast and East Coast in US as well. We've seen that the West Coast, which is largely dominated by the tech, is showing a deferred return to work, whereas on the East Coast, New York and all that, it's very exciting to know that some of the company sectors, the return to work to offices is now 60 to 70%. So that's kind of showing a trend that's not a one size fits all. But at the same time, at the macro level, what COVID has brought to India is more growth in the tech world. The world is going to be far more dependent upon digitization, software development, and the whole tech dependence on AI. And thankfully, India has all the talent, and that's why you see a lot of IT companies hiring and growing in this COVID world. At the same time, in the last 6-8 months, what emerged as something very important was the higher attrition rates across the tech companies, and which led to a lot of tech leaders feel that one of the reasons for increased attrition is the fact that extended work from home led to a very disconnect with the employees in terms of culture and the whole physical bonding of the employees with the leaders, with their peer levels, with their friends and work. And that's how we see that even the tech industry, started initiatives of driving the employees, returning to work. So on one side, tech will drive growth, and at the same time, the tech so far has been slightly mellowed in terms of return to work. But I think next year onwards, starting January onwards, we do see the tech employees coming back to start with in a hybrid format, maybe 2 days or 3 days a week. And that trend, once the employee starts feeling comfortable with the facilities, the safety, and started coming back to their home locations, we see that percentage to keep on increasing from January onwards. We've already seen last 2 months that percentage increased by about 5 to 6% in most locations.
Amit, have you, with this new outbreak coming in the last 1 month, there seems to be, we seem to be taking it still quite lightly, like we were taking things lightly in around Feb and March, but globally numbers seem to be going up. India numbers are still in like single digit thousands per day, but we're seeing different countries having like 50, 70, 80,000 cases a day. Anything specific as one of India's largest developer, your guidance for tenants at this point of time? Given that, let's forget about the last 18, 19 months. Let's just think of the last 1 month. Anything specific you want to give a message to the occupiers, CRE heads watching this program?
So I think all developers have done a lot of preparation to make the spaces and workplace safe. So I think the global messages which should go to through the CRE heads and HR heads to the employees, that it's good to start coming back. Maybe to start with in that hybrid format, 2 days, 3 days, so that the employees who are coming back after 1.5 years starts getting comfortable with the safety at workplace. We as developers are coming, to office from last 1.5 years, 2 years, and then gradually as they start experiencing the enhanced features in the workplace, enhanced amenities at the workplace, and more importantly, the safe environment, the employees themselves will start building their confidence on return to work. And I think that's going to get the whole workplaces back and to the buzz. So the big message is show confidence on the infrastructure upgrade, safety upgrade, which the developers have made in the last year or so. Start taking baby steps, and then your confidence will develop.
Amit, let me go to the next Amit. Amit, I've never seen so much of talk about flex space. It's a new industry. It's just 4 years when Juggy started the industry as head of WeWork. And today, there's so much of talk around flex space. Every meeting we go to, there are our clients, occupier clients asking us, what are the opportunities for flex players, especially in South? I know Bangalore is a very evolved market. Chennai and Hyderabad, we have just started seeing over the last year or so, flex players getting into those markets. So what are your thoughts around flex in South India?
Sure. Thanks, Ramesh, and thanks to Realty Plus. Glad to be here amongst my colleagues. Ramesh, I think clearly, if you look at the last 2 years, almost about 60+% in the 7 metros was leasing done around flex, right? So clearly, it's an industry that has taken on in a big way. I think what changed over the last at least 2 years is that the enterprises and the large customers started taking flex seriously. And if you look at the total leasing that's happened on the back of obviously flex taking a large portion of it, almost 50% of that flex demand came from large enterprises, right? And clearly that's driven the numbers quite high for the flex business, because the SMEs and the startups and the mid-sized corporates, which were sub 500 seat demand, was already in play before COVID. But post-COVID, I think clearly because of flexibility, because of plug and play kind of environment and capital to operating kind of environment, that it saw a surge. As you see, and Colliers did an excellent report recently around it. In Q3 21, Chennai saw almost 12% of the demand, and Hyderabad saw about 28%. And Bangalore was, in fact, even leading higher than that number. So clearly, IT, ITS, BFSI, all of those are leading the charge. As we see it, the southern cities of Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai are going to be leading the charge on flex and the expansion. We personally are at Awfis are extremely bullish. Almost half of our 60,000 seats are in South, which is going to double in the next 12 months to almost 60,000. So half of our portfolio in the next 12 months is going to be in these South cities. In these CBD locations, clearly we are seeing a resurgence. If you look at Bangalore today, I think a lot of activity, every large demand that we are running, the first option they're looking for is CBD. Clearly the challenge is that in Bangalore CBD, not a lot is available, right? And especially brand new buildings are high in demand but not available. So I think we clearly see some of that resurgence happening in Bangalore CBD. To give you an example, in Bangalore CBD in the last 1 month, we would have leased almost about 120,000 square feet, and in less than a week we were able to take it up. Our clients were able to take that up. So that's the level of demand that's driving in Bangalore specifically. In some of the other markets, Hyderabad obviously has seen a lot of action because the large enterprises are driving that demand. But the way we are looking at it is about 60% of the demand is coming today from large enterprises. 40% is coming from essentially SME startups and mid-sized corporates. I think Flex is here to stay. As I said, we are taking a big bet on the southern markets and continuing to expand our portfolio there. Yeah.
Amit, you recently, I saw some pictures of a partnership with Prestige. You want to talk about that partnership and how it's a win-win for both the Flex operator and the developer owner?
Yeah. So Ramesh, I think Juggy is on the call. So he is my partner when it comes to Prestige. I think this journey started about 9 months ago. Clearly, we started with a very small opportunity that we had in Bangalore, and I approached Juggy. And I think Juggy understood really well the Flex space, being head of WeWork prior to Prestige, and obviously understood through JLL as well as experience. So I pitched the idea that look at us as an amenity, right? Look at us as an extension of your campus. And clearly, we would be able to service not only your large scale demand, which managed offices was becoming mainstream at that point, but also be able to service your small requirements of less than 100 seats, which typically large campuses were avoiding, right? So I think that partnership, which started with about 20,000 square feet, is touching 500,000 square feet across 12 different locations, 12 different centers, 4 cities. So extremely proud of the partnership. It is a preferred partnership, so it's not exclusive. Both of us are free to work with other partners as well. But I think because the partnership worked well, we have expanded that aggressively. And I think the one thing which worked really well was that Prestige having the great locations, great buildings, a great management of their campuses, and then us bringing the ability to deliver the consistent service to the clients. And I think I look at it as a hardware and a software kind of a solution, where Prestige is the hardware, excellent, very reliable top end, and we are the software which delivers the service on a consistent basis. So I think Juggy, please add if obviously he is the 50% of the solution set here. So
Juggy, we'll come back to you. Juggy,
sure.
We have some questions for you. Vinod, when you decided to do your REIT IPO listing, we were all kind of a little surprised what's happening. It's COVID. Indian stock markets are doing very well, but you went ahead with it, and extremely successful REIT listing. You also had the institutional backing of Blackstone, plus a lot of other global investors, public market investors invested. How has the impression of Indian office real estate changed amongst the institutional investors? I'm sure you're on quarterly calls. Every other day you may be sitting with calls with institutional investors. How has it changed? Because demand has dropped from that 46 million square feet number in 19 to around a 26 million square feet number last year. And this year also looks like it'll just be a little better than last year. So how has that perception changed?
Thanks, Ramesh. So very simple. Most of these global institutional investors have been in the real estate play for decades. India has still taken baby steps in the REIT. And we were right, you're right, we were right in the middle of the pandemic at that point in time, attempting to do a REIT. We used to wonder, take feedback from global investors to see what do they think. To our pleasant surprise, they were pretty clear about the long-term footprint of India, pretty clear about commercial real estate as an asset class, and the resilience that asset class will continue to demonstrate in terms of its revenues and earnings and distribution of dividend. We must remember, REIT is not a speculative play. REIT is predominantly 80-90% sustained earnings that are already coming out of developed assets. So when you're not having speculative play and it's a yield play with a growth play, then you're looking at it for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 year play out in a market like India, which is a developing and growing economy, where we have sub-dollar rents with grade A assets across of India and top cities. The infrastructure is taking a key play out, and you're seeing micro markets changing in every 10-year cycles. You're seeing the values of those assets completely change and the perception of accepting those assets completely changing. So they know that for the next 2 decades or so, if we were to reach to a target or wherever each one of us as a country is planning to reach and grow, commercial real estate is going to play a big role in that. Having said that, like Amit mentioned to you, in the last 18 months, India has been the only country that has actually delivered resiliently services to the globe without a hiccup and has seen huge amount of growth, has seen huge amount of revenue. While you might think demand is going down and the need for office is going down, I have a counter cyclical question for you, that if nobody has gone to the office and you've still seen these crazy kind of COVID numbers for the last 18 months, then definitely office was not playing a bad role in influencing COVID as an impact for people to get it. So if you were going everywhere else and you were roaming around everywhere else and still catching COVID, I think office is far more safer for you to be in than roaming around in places where you should not be because you were not in office. So people have understood that, companies are understanding that, and they've actually worked on the aggressive vaccination protocol. And you saw people get back. Obviously, what happens is if you 18 months you worked at home, it's going to be difficult for you to psychologically agree to come back to work because your life patterns have changed. When we started getting back to work 3 months ago, we did exactly the same thing. And then we said, okay, let's just go 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week to office. But when you start working from the office, you realize the work dynamic is drastically different from what you can deliver at home. And mind you, in the tech space, Ramesh, the average age is 27. And those guys don't have a fancy home with services and recreation at their doorstep. They're either bachelors sharing apartments or chummeries with colleagues or friends. And they are pampered at the office space. They have nothing to do over here. They have to cook their own food or get Swiggy out. They're sharing bandwidth. They don't have a work culture and ethic at the workplace. They're still learning work culture and work ethic at a 25-year-old. You're not going to be able to inject work ethic into someone who's just getting into the workspace. For that, you need the office space. So all of these things, when you put together, when you speak to clients, they get nightmares of saying that we don't want to work from home, but we're going to slowly nudge them. Yeah, obviously, if you're going to hear Omnicon and everyone's going to say, okay, be safe, but they're all over the place anyways. While we're not in the office, we're still catching the disease. So something needs to be thought of.
Vinod, I hear from a lot of clients, including tech companies, that HR is being the spoil sport for office re-entry. HR is telling the CXOs and CEOs that you force people to come in, they'll quit, they'll go to, and we've all been hearing about attrition numbers across industries kind of going up. It's probably the worst attrition numbers we've seen in the industry since 2007-8. So how do you counter that when HR says, when a CEO hears from an HR that you force them to come, they'll go to the competition? So what do we do?
I don't think it is HR you can blame, but there are two ways to look at attrition, Ramesh. One is attrition is where you're asking people to leave because you don't have business and you don't have revenue. The other attrition is when you're getting 10 other opportunities at higher values for which you are leaving the job. That's what's going on right now. So it's a very different dynamic to the attrition word that we are kind of using. And that is what is causing them the panic button to say, let's retain the employee wherever he is. If he wants to work in his shorts, it doesn't matter. I don't want to lose him right now because I've got revenue coming through. Right? That's what's going on. It's a good story. And they're saying, okay, as long as I'm getting delivery, but what is important, Ramesh, is like Amit mentioned, and you saw the demand for flex spaces. If the guy was so convinced about working from home, he was not going to sign up a flex space. The flex space is the most prominent, visible roadmap for you to see that they will come back to the office space because they are taking temp space where they don't want to do capex, but they definitely want, underline the word space. They want a desk to be assigned to the employee, which is why they're going there. Otherwise, they would be working from home. Why would they take the flex space? And this is the transition which is going to help the flex space business. At the same time, flex space is taking space. Obviously, they can't create offices in the homes. So they're taking office spaces. At the end of the day, it is office space, while you may not have physical occupancy. So all of this, if you stitch together, and to tell you the last part of what you were asking from a demand point of view, the demand for big areas and big spaces is still very, very strong. Guys who are planning 22, 23, 24 footprints are not perturbed about this 1 month or the last 15 days or the next 20 days. That demand is aggressively rolling out. You are seeing large RFPs that will get translated in the next quarters for them to convert to under construction, build to suit businesses. What had started to pick up was the 50,000, 100,000 square foot last 15, 20, 30 days. Because as you know, in December, businesses taper down after 15th and 17th of December, and the demand comes back after 15th Jan and 20th of Jan when the world shuts down. If we are hit by a pandemic wave at that point in time, obviously that will get slightly delayed. But I don't see beyond of that anything taking place which is going to disrupt, because if in 18 months it didn't disrupt, nothing's going to disrupt. And COVID is not going away after the third wave. We don't have the light at the end of the tunnel visible. It's going to be part of our lives for the next few years till we figure out a way around it turning out to be just a flu or whatever else it is, and certain extra protocols, etc., etc. So I don't think it's going away anywhere, but we have learned to live around it. We will learn more to live around it, and we'll figure out our ways to get back to work in our lives. I think that's what's going to happen.
You know, the very, very good points. Juggy, let me come to you. A lot of stock in India, Juggy, is slowly aging. And a lot of this was built in the pre-pandemic world. We've seen today a definite preference amongst occupiers, especially multinationals, to that flight for quality is something we are seeing. People want to upgrade their buildings. Today, there's been a rental correction also. So today, occupiers believe that they can move into grade A plus buildings at good effective rentals. What are your thoughts around the entire refurbishment piece? Because a lot of developers, you are an institutional developer, but a lot of developers don't have the financial muscle to upgrade. There are strata sold buildings. What would your guidance be to the audience who are like in grade B kind of buildings, or in buildings which need refurbishment?
Ramesh, thank you. I think a good pertinent point, because I think if you're looking at flight for quality and looking at how the landscape has changed completely, and I think with the advent of the Blackstones and the Brookfields who are coming in, they bring the global know-how in terms of how assets are managed. And I think from a landlord kind of a world, we have moved to an asset manager kind of a world, and I think that's a big flight of comfort factor that many of us sitting in this room are actually progressing. And I think over a period of time, you see if you can't manage to reinvest and replan and re-emphasize the fact that age-old assets have a big challenge, and I think people want quality. And with this pandemic, I think people have realized that they have to have, if you look at the global practices, where what you mentioned about HR people today, they all want agile workforce, they want an agile workspace, they want wellness, they want urban experiences. So I think if we are in a large, and many of my colleagues who are sitting here own large business parks like DLF and KRC and all of them, I think we will have no other choice but to move to a level where benchmarking becomes so important that if you want to be relevant, if you want to be future-proof, if you want to have buildings and relationships that are long haul, you'll have to keep reinvesting and reinventing. And I think at Prestige also, we are now working out a massive plan to upgrade our facilities, upgrade our business parks, which are aging. And I think it's important that if you want to be relevant, if you want to continue doing business with the top 100, top 200 occupiers, they are demanding, and their demands are not, I would say, they're very legitimate in asking that they need spaces that look fresh. And I think with the advent of institutional capital holding real estate, it becomes much more simpler. In the last era where people were holding strata, it was very difficult, because for you to go back to 100 investors asking them to invest in spaces was very difficult. So I think to answer your question in short, I think if you really want to ensure that you're in the top 200 discussions of large occupiers, you have to be with relevant spaces.
Thanks, Juggy. Ravi, let me come to you. South Indian office, the three cities are probably the three big cities in terms of demand. I was just looking at the numbers. Out of the 600 million square feet, nearly 300 million square feet is in the three southern cities. Absorption, nearly 60%. Most of the years is again in the three South Indian cities. Supply also, again, I was checking it's again. But in the last 19 months or so, we've seen both vacancy levels go up and the demand overall come down. Compared to the market, the entire market has dropped. When do you see the market bouncing back to that 2019 levels?
So Ramesh, a lot has been said. I'm just connecting the dots with respect to when the markets will be reviving here. As we know, our last two predictions have gone wrong in terms of, how the COVID is evolving. And the third one is just around the corner. Hopefully it will be muted, but we don't know. So we cannot predict. Every prediction has kind of led us to believe that there's a surprise ahead. Having said that, I agree with what Vinod said that, we have to work our way around and make sure that there are protocols to follow. And maybe depending on how medicine progresses, there will be treatment of this disease would be just like any other flu. So if that's the case, where we're headed, to my mind, probably some more experience, some more journey towards, these hardships ahead will make us more resilient. I would, hazard a guess by saying that probably anywhere between 12 to 24 months, we may see, normalcy. And with normalcy, I'm just trying to compare while the circumstances may be very different, be it the 2008-9 debacle or the financial crisis or even now. I think Indian markets have certainly been resilient, and more so now with everything happening with tech and other things. I think in 2 to 3 years' time, Ramesh, if not earlier for sure, I think 3 years, three and a half years should be a good time for us to hit back pre-COVID. At least closer by to the 37, 38 million. I don't know whether we'll reach 42 by then, but I think we'll get there in that much time frame.
Ravi, what are your thoughts around mixed-use developments? There's a lot of talk about how walk to work, 15-minute cities, but even today you look at the main IT corridors in the country. Old Mahabalipuram, or you look at Outer Ring Road or Airoli, or most of these IT corridors don't have enough residences around to kind of, meaning at cost-effective residences to cater to IT engineers. How do we fix this gap? There are very few examples of mixed-use developments like a Hiranandani or a Magarpata or a little bit of what DLF has done in Delhi, in Gurgaon. So how do we fix this, Ravi? Any high-level ideas around that?
No, I think just the punchline, how to fix it is, I think it's the onus is on the top, 5 to 10 developers here, and to fix this. I think these are little larger gestation period projects, and it all depends on how you end up acquiring that parcel of land or asset that you want to build out. In many cases, these are historical cost assets which have played out for number of decades for a few top developers. We have such projects going in Bangalore, in Mumbai. And clearly, Ramesh, there is a clear preference for companies or occupiers to be part of such large campuses. They certainly offer psychological as well as practical benefits. I say psychological because it's more to do with the employee mindset. And, I'm just referring to that punchline which Amit started with, that, getting back to work is not universal. And therefore, I think, it's yet to be seen how employees are sitting at home, because these offices are currently vacant, right? In the southern cities, almost 80-90% of the offices are vacant. And therefore, again, it's difficult to predict how the employees will look at from pre-COVID to post-COVID and therefore being part of a larger campus or mixed-use development. But to my mind, it's more psychological, and the employee or the workforce is clearly giving preference from whatever recent inquiries we are facing or meetings that we have. I'm not saying all these transactions do convert there, because they also come at a slight premium because these amenities are not cheap. Having said that, while they may not be cheap, but clearly it gets subsidized over a period of time. The onus is really on us, Ramesh, to make this happen. And many of us have made it happen, right? So in North Bangalore, for example, we seem to be one of the only large mixed-use developments. And we're seeing of late, given the park is coming near to completion, maybe in another 6 months, the kind of traction in terms of demand, in terms of pipeline, only suggests that there is a clear preference compared to some of the other so-called more reasonably priced or cheaper priced products around us.
Got it. Ravi, Amit, you're one of those few developers who still have a lot of land yet to be developed. What is running around Mr. Singh's mind with regards to mixed-use developments in a structured, large way? Like, how has DLF strategy changed around mixed-use in the last 1.5 years?
So, Ramesh, mixed use, if you see the real value creation on ground, some of the successful projects, the mixed use need not necessarily mean all three components, which is residential, retail, amenities, and office together. What's the successful models are where there is office developments and you have an amenities and experience center together, which is what Cyber Hub is to Cyber City is. And which is in an international context, you have, Brookfield places to the area, or even how the Yachts and Yards is developing. I think what's important is that the two components should be together in this substantial value creation, which is the office and the amenities, and which could be larger amenities like a Cyber Hub experience there. And at the same time, the residents, increasingly, if you see the underlining message from the tech workforce and otherwise, that the work-life balance becomes very important, which means your commute time from your residence to office should not be much. So even if your residence is not part of the complex, through the mass transport system or in the surrounding areas, it should not be a large commuting time. Ideally, a comfort zone time is within 30 minutes. So mixed use, will get furthermore in office and amenities together, maybe office amenities and retail together. But larger value creation is that office amenities retail together with a mass transport connected, so that your commuting time is not beyond 30 minutes, ideally a 15 to 30 minutes. And that will be the interesting way of looking at developments going forward.
Thanks, Amit. Juggy, there's so much of talk about startups across the country. There is every day you hear of a new unicorn. There's so much of money pouring into the startup ecosystem. Are you really seeing this translating into real estate demand? Meaning, I know you're used to doing a million square feet deals for Cisco and those Flipkarts and those kind of deals, but is the startup ecosystem making an impact on the real estate demand, office demand?
So Ramesh, actually, this it's very interesting you asked me this question, because yesterday I was just reading through one report, a deck that Colliers had just released, and it shows a national dashboard, very nicely captured. You just, at an executive level, you can just see that. And I still remember those blue or green colors you were showing, and it shows very clearly that the key demand drivers year to date in that was about 35% was still the IT BPO kind of guys, and the others were some 30-35%, and then Flex was some 15-17%. I remember very clearly 4-5 years ago, Flex never used to feature in those top 3-4 clear key demand drivers in the office space. And you look at where Flex has gone from 5 to 17%. This year, I think it will be about.
Do you think, Juggy, Flex demand is being driven by startups?
No. So my point is, you will now replace in your next 1 year report, you will see that when Colliers releases the report next year, you will see that you will have to add a new space as domestic startups. And I think the reason why I'm saying this is that, look at how the startup ecosystem has evolved. If you look at the last 11 months, $70 billion worth of money, equity has actually flowed into startups across the country. There are about 180 prop
You
tech
said 70 billion in 1 year.
70 billion in the last 11 months. And you forget what's happening into the listed guys who are going, on the stock exchanges. And if you look at the overall scenario today, who are these guys who are actually throwing in so much money? Who are actually getting all this money? So if you look at the top, हमारे जिंदगी में हम लोग पहले यूनिकॉर्न सोचते थे, फिर डेकाकॉन आया. Now people are saying Sonicorn. So Sonicorns are top 15 companies who will go to the next level of unicorns. So from, how the evolution is happening, especially being in Bangalore, I know many of these guys who started small and have become so large. So look at how they are growing. They're actually, because they're funded, they've also realized that now GMVs don't matter in their companies. What really matters is how profitable they are. So when profitability comes, they are also looking at how productivity increases. When productivity increases, they want to go into better offices. And that's where the evolution of this whole startup. Previously, Koromangala used to be filled with people sitting at homes and going to Starbucks and setting up startups. Now they also realize if you want good quality talent, you need good quality office spaces. And you will see, I think between all the players who are sitting here, the developers, I can tell you this much, that the next focus for all of us should be these big boys, the deliveries, the Swiggies, the Zomatos, the Paytms, the big baskets, the Snapdeals, the Zohos, the whoever, these are the companies who are actually the Zerodhas, the Razorpays. These are the companies who are actually going to be.
Sorry, Juggy, to interrupt you. Amit, are you seeing that in Delhi? Is it just a Bangalore phenomenon, or it's there in Delhi also?
Well, actually, so there's a stage 1, stage 2, what every unicorn is driving. I think stage 1, they're more focused on their profits at their thresholds. My sense is either they get to a certain critical mass, then only they're looking at these quality spaces. Because unlike multinationals where there is a checkbox to have a certain space, like, a sustainability lead certification or a well-being certification and all that, that one big difference is that they're not getting carried away by a checkbox as a start point. So they're very shrewd as to what works with them, what works with their employees today, and not just getting driven by a checkbox. So to answer your question, start at this stage, less demand, but I agree with Juggy, let them reach to a certain threshold, they would be an important segment of office demand.
Yeah, because I'll just add to this. Now, if you go to an Ola scooter factory, it's one of the best factories anywhere in the globe you can see in terms of quality, environment, health, safety, sustainability, the way they built it. You go to a Licious, kitchen, dark kitchen, where they actually do farm to fork kind of a production. You will be shocked to see the quality that they're using in their own production levels today. So it's very natural for them to progress to that kind of office the moment they see the production houses. They want show window offices. They also want sweatshops, but they also. So I think in the next 2 years, you will see there'll be a new segment of our business, and I can predict this, that you will be depending on a very large part of the domestic startups business will be feeding us big leasing.
You can do it.
Thanks, Juggy. I want to ask Vinod the next question. Vinod, what's the future of REITs? What will happen? Right now, we have 3 REITs all backed by big global institutional with great Indian development companies. What's the future of this the REITs?
You don't have to go far. Fortunately for us, we have established REIT markets that have been churning out REIT after REIT over the last decades. And if you look at America, for example, with $160 trillion worth of REITs, with 60% of the organized real estate, or all shape and form. Farooq, you'll have to mute, sorry. All shape and form. Thanks. Sorry. All shape and form getting converted into REITs. Having said that, by default, if you take, if you take any asset class.
Did you say 160 billion?
160 trillion.
Trillion?
Yes.
Wow.
Please pull that number out and you'll figure it out. So that's where it is. A hospital REIT, college REITs, school REITs, residential REIT, student housing REIT, jail REIT. You name the asset, it is in a REIT in America. Okay. So having said that, anyone who's looking at a yield play and capital growth as markets mature, and you want to participate in commercial real estate or any real estate, which is organized yield playing real estate, you will REIT it eventually. Right now, we're in a world where unicorns and all of these guys are taking the PE ratios to another level. At that point in time, obviously, when you start seeing a REIT throwing out 6.5% dividend tax-free for you, and then you're seeing an overall growth of 15%, you're not looking at that and saying that, look, I can buy a stock today and double it and triple it in 15 days and 30 days and get out. But if you're a seasoned player and you want to put your capital into the right basket and you want to put your play into real estate, REITs will be the only place you will go to invest. Fortunately for us in India, obviously out of 600 odd million, 300 million is institutionalized. So that much of that asset class will get into REITs sometime or the other. In commercial real estate, I'm not even talking other assets.
Got it, Vinod. Thanks. Amit, what design changes have you seen? Not just in Flex, but generally from corporate occupiers? Amit, Ramani, this question, Amit of Awfis.
So, Ramesh, I think, clearly there are three things that have changed when it comes to the landlords, to the occupiers, right? Obviously, flexibility has become a theme, right? So they're looking for 1 to 3 years, scale up and scale down on a short notice, flexible payment terms. The network coverage, right? I think clearly this the second part is where they're looking for space as X number of seats, but additional amount of headcount. So headcount doesn't equal seats, but limit that number of seats with a extended kind of a headcount usage of those seats. And then mobility solutions are a big thing, right? So multiple clients are coming in to take bulk meeting room hours, seat days, etc. And not only just across one city, but across multiple cities. So I think that piece from a structured use of space, I think just-in-time use has come into the forefront. In terms of technology, I think as when it comes into it, I think design and technology kind of go hand in hand. So technology is playing a role in three parts, right? So there's front of the house. So all about touchless ordering, visitor management, all of those kinds of things that allows you to use the space without, really touching, the spaces in any kind of format. Then there is a back of the house, right? Which is around operational excellence, safety, hygiene, monitoring of frequency of cleaning, all of that kind of good stuff. And then the third piece which has come into play is this administrative management of space. So wherein workplace, hoteling, rostering systems, ability to have multiple users for space, much more collaborative focus on spaces. So less focus on what I would call individual space, but more space focus on collaborative space, because what people are sensing is in this new avatar of where we live today, distributed work and hybrid work are going to go hand in hand, right? So you will have to create multiple pockets of spaces where people can congregate when they need to, a couple of days a week, and then be able to work from their individual location. So I think the design change has primarily been on more focus on what I would call as public space or interactive space, and less on the personal space. Now, again, for each organization that varies. There are certain organizations which have kept the ratio exactly the same. There are certain progressive organizations that have made it 50-50, and there are even organizations which are looking at almost like a 70-30 ratio, where 70 is all about public space being more collaborative in nature, and only 30% kind of individual space. So those are the key things that have changed.
Got it. Ravi, let me ask the next question to you. What's the future of, there's so much of talk around the world about ESG and energy efficiency and sustainability. You are one of the largest construction houses in the country, not just developers. What are you seeing and hearing about sustainability?
No, so clearly this is not only a buzzword which everybody is talking about, it's all over the newspapers every day, Ramesh. I think the sense of urgency is kind of accelerated on this aspect globally. And the COP26 and the recent summits, global summits, are only suggesting with the kind of commitments corporates are making.
We have time till 2070 in India.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, correct. India
Only Juggy will be around at that time.
Corporates are taking stiffer targets at 2030, 35, Microsoft and others. But yeah, India is 2070. And rightly so, Ramesh, it takes time to unwind what has happened over centuries. So, but having said that, I think we learn from our clients, Ramesh. So I have witnessed in the recent couple of RFPs that the clients are making it a precondition on aspects that need to be available in the facility, such as green power. And one such meeting with one of the top majors in Bangalore suggested that they will not budge. And it's important then for us developers to kind of not only educate us, but acceleratedly implement because we have also committed to these kind of deadlines, and it's time to implement, Ramesh. So I think we're trying to figure out how not only to provide this green power, but also to reduce cost. One such example was for Accenture, and how they have probably gone about doing that with an agency or a green co company who helped them and also brought down the cost. I'm told, I don't want to name a number without verifying, but the cost per unit is come down further. I think it's important also, Ramesh, when you construct a base building, the base building costs, especially when you look at, platinum rating kind of structures, to work in tandem or in alliance to meet your ESG goals, it is important to achieve these ratings that the occupiers also understand that. And sometimes it's very important that the interiors also align with the platinum ratings. Otherwise, you don't tend to meet these goals. And as of today, occupiers just either you don't have any control or they have not reached that maturity, let alone maturity. It's also a cost issue because their budgets do not permit them. So I think we have some way to go to create a consensus and arrive at these protocols, because eventually those very occupiers have to work in tandem with developers, both of which founders and promoters globally have committed to these deadlines. So there has to be these protocols which will evolve and find themselves, Ramesh.
Yeah, Ramesh, I just want to add something on this. Everybody talks about, sustainability. Clients want ESG, client want green power, but nobody wants to pay extra for it today. So I think through these platforms, if the occupiers are listening, they must appreciate, and people through you, we are a large influencer in the market today. I think from developers' perspective, it's very important that it's very easy for us to be pushed to the wall from the environment perspective. When the local governments don't allow diesel generators, like in Delhi, you want gas generators. Now, gas generators cost 3 times the cost of a normal diesel generator. Who pays for it? So
let me, Juggy, 1 second. Vinod, Amit, are you seeing that in Mumbai and Delhi also? Vinod has 300 rupee buildings in Mumbai, so he doesn't have to worry about cost. But is that a worry in, let's say, Airoli or Gurgaon? Gurgaon is also reasonably cost conscious. What Juggy just said?
So it's like this, Ramesh. Firstly, we have to look at ESG holistically. ESG just doesn't mean environment, right? There are a whole lot of social and other governance responsibilities correlated to ESG when you start looking at ESG. That piece nobody's talking about. Sustainability is critical, absolutely. And I don't think we have an option but to not do it. Whether we like it or not, we'll be out of business if we don't do it. And we can be actually able to make much larger presence felt with doing all of that. But it's important to understand governance criteria. It's important to understand the social dynamic of the ESG component, which as organizations we have to go forward with, whether it's inclusiveness, whether it's training protocols, whether it's all of those things. So that's really a big part of ESG, which Ramesh, all of us can very easily do by bringing in the work ethic change, which you don't need 2070 for. Sustainability, obviously, by default, I mean, if you want to take globally, construction industry contributes to more than 50% of the carbon footprint. Now, when you want to start building a building, I can build a building which is absolutely sustainable and give you best in class, and whether the power costs are high or whatever is a secondary matter, the customer will end up paying it by default. What's important to understand is I can't even buy more than 10% of my construction material, which I can say is environmentally friendly. Whatever is getting delivered to me is coming from factories outside. And most of those factories could be domestic or international, and they don't necessarily have their manufacturing facilities under a green footprint. So how the hell am I going to be able to build a green building? So those things are really critical, and all of my material that's coming through to me, it's a long journey to get all of these guys to work together in that protocol. And that obviously
is it about education, Vinod? Because Juggy raised a very valid point.
Okay, so that takes simple things like concrete, right? Now we want to buy concrete, and you're pouring concrete into your construction sites. You're buying it from ready-mix contractors. Okay? I can tell you, take the top 5 names. Most of their plants in most micro markets are not green. Right? So how do you buy? Now you're pouring in concrete. That I could find probably one supplier in one city out of 5 suppliers who was willing to give me green concrete. I was willing to pay extra cost, but he can't give the entire supply that I need. So where do I get from? I'm asking you, every single construction material, is it coming from a green footprint? Are they using sustainable energy there? Are they using the correct protocols for manufacturing those assets? Are they recycling correctly? Are they using domestic product? Are they making sure that there's no huge transportation, this, that, and the other? So it's a massive task, and it's an opportunity. The large players must take it up, and then you will get that coming down to you. Costs will go up, but yeah, I mean, we have sub-dollar rents. How long will you hammer us down with sub-dollar rents?
Amit,
have to go up.
The same,
30 seconds, Amit.
All Fortune 500 companies are asking for sustainability. We will start hearing a term of net zero buildings on expectations. To start with, even if the India deadline is 2070, because these are global companies, they will follow the global deadline, which is 2030. So we would start seeing a lot of that expectation, and more so on operations, because these are all for lease properties. So we'll start hearing about more net zero expectations from in that. And not just international companies. I've been hearing about Indian top IT companies asking the same of late.
Got it, Amit. Sapnam, back to you.
Very interesting session. One question that we have got 2-3 times is South Cities commercial real estate different from other cities? And if it is, how?
Vinod, Juggy, you want to take it? Juggy has a lot of...
I think we were the first of the block, to be honest. The South cities were the first of the block. So they understood how to work with the multinationals, the occupiers' demands, the low rental base. So we figured out a model where we could charge less rentals for great quality. So I think we were the first of the block to move forward there. Nobody thought that you could deliver a building in 2002 at 18 rupees a square foot a month. The same building, today we are happily still hovering on a zip code of $1.20 a square foot, which is damn good. So I think quality, great partnership approach, and more importantly, understanding the client needs is where the South cities scored among the rest. Now that we're entering Bombay, we understand that for every square foot that you leave, there is too much on the table that you leave for. So you have to pour concrete on every square centimeter that is available. So I think from that perspective, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Kochi, all better cities to do that.
Juggy forgot his 80% efficiency in Mumbai, and he's quoting 60% efficiency in line with the market.
So I'll just get back to Sapna's question primarily, which was, is commercial real estate different in South India from anywhere else? Well, 80% of commercial real estate is driven by tech companies. So the quality of buildings being offered to tech companies wherever you are in these top cities is the same. Leaving aside CBD that Juggy just mentioned and Ramesh was just nudging us on. But those are CBD assets which are triple grade A marquee assets for the country where top global companies will put their offices. That's not changing the game. Those will be flag bearers of quality at a different level. But yeah, these are catering to 90% international clients. So the quality of these buildings are top notch. They are not like sheds being built for 50 rupee rents. They are top notch assets, equivalent or better than global buildings for tech companies to occupy. Because mind you, it's not about rent anymore. These are not sweatshops. These are offices now that are attracting top talent. And the top talent are all millennials. They want excitement in the washroom, in the lobbies, in the car parks, in their offices. So they'll go away to the next job if they're not excited in the office.
I'll add a bit, even amenities is a big difference. We manage both North and the South. The way we would do a cyber hub, which is more flashy with couple of pubs around and liquor licenses around, Chennai approach will be very different. I mean, Chennai, the employees are happy if they give them nice environment for outdoor sports and kind of keep the amenities basic on costing, but less flashy, but more functional. So there is a nature of difference in adoption on the amenities as well.
A lot of booze in Delhi and a lot of sports in South.
Chennai doesn't give liquor license too often. So.
I forgot that.
So,
Sorry.
one question which has been often asked, and then Ramesh, I'll hand it over to you for the summary of this entire discussion, is will 2022 be the year for real estate in tier 2 cities?
Amit, why don't you take that, Amit?
So, Sapna, I think I was probably the only one, 12 months ago saying tier 2 cities are going to rock. I can assure you 2022 and 23 are going to be extremely, extremely big for those cities. On a net basis, I think they will at least grow twice as fast because the base is very small than the tier 1 metros. We are betting big on tier 2 cities, and I feel Jaipur, Indore, Nagpur, Coimbatore, Kochi, Bhubaneswar, Lucknow are going to rock in 2022 and beyond.
कुछ बड़ा डील कर रहा है अमित का लग रहा है he's talking like that.
Sapna,
he's already committed it.
Sapna, a big trend which we're seeing in tier 2 cities is the reverse migration. And again, that HR point which we raised and what Amit just said. So all those three things are coming together: HR, flexible operations, operators, and reverse migrations. And that's going to lead to tier 2 city demand. Okay,
fantastic. I think that answers our audience questions. Ramesh, over to you now.
Thanks, Sapna, and all the panelists for a very good panel discussion. Amit spoke about, Amit Brewer spoke about deferment of plans of re-entry. He's seen that in the last 1 month, but that's only a deferment of re-entry. It's not people deciding not to take space. He again said, don't paint everything with one brush. Return based on cities, different industries. That's something we all need to realize. The tech dependence is going to help India overall. The world has become a lot more tech dependent in the last 19 months than ever before. Hybrid is the future. Everybody, all the panelists, including Amit and Vinod and Juggy and everybody, Ravi spoke about how it's very safe to work from office. And in spite of people not coming to office, COVID cases have increased. We saw that in April when hardly anyone was coming. Even now, you look at it. So it's not, office environments are very safe. One needs to show confidence in the office infrastructure. That's again important. The panelists talk about that. Getting back to work is normal. So that's again something which people need to spread. Amit Ramani spoke about how enterprise demand has gone up. He spoke about how in Q3, Chennai, Hyderabad, the amount of leasing by flex is increased. 50% of seats, his seats are in South. That number is going to go up more. He spoke about how demand is coming in CBD and 120,000 square feet of space, which he leased in less than a week in Bangalore CBD. And Juggy also spoke about how 20,000 square feet partnership with Amit has now become a 500,000 square feet partnership. So he spoke about how the developer becomes the hardware and Amit becomes the software. So that was interesting. We know the very interesting point about institutional players. You said institutional players have been in this game for decades, and they have seen these REITs do well over a long time. They are not looking at 3 months or 6 months. You spoke about how REIT is a product which gives us 80 to 90% sustained earnings. That was interesting to hear. Service delivery for rest of the globe by Indian companies has helped reiterate India's IT destination globally. Offices are safe. At 27, the average age of IT employee, you don't have fancy homes and fancy amenities and fancy food, which all IT campuses provide. And you felt by most of the 23-24 demand of those campuses and those big deals are still on, in spite of re-entry getting slightly delayed. Juggy, you mentioned that how developers need to have an asset manager mindset for development. You spoke about how the importance of wellness. You spoke about the importance of upgrades and how reinvesting is very important in upgrades, and how Prestige is reinvesting in all your buildings to upgrade. Ravi, you spoke about how our last two predictions have come wrong. Many of my predictions made in second quarter, calendar quarter of last year, all have gone wrong. We all spoke about how by July, August of 2020, things would be normal. Now we are fourth quarter of 21, things are still not normal. You spoke about how it will take 12 to 24 months to get back to normalcy, but at least 2-3 years to get back to 2019 demand. You are bullish on mixed use. And Amit Grover mentioned that mixed use is not only about residences, it's also about other aspects like hospitality and food and F&B. So Juggy, you spoke about how startup demand is going up through the roof. You spoke about how $70 billion have been invested. You said two terms which I wrote down: decacorn and sonicorn. So I'll read up about that. I haven't heard those when we spoke about unicorn. Juggy is one step ahead. REITs, Vinod, you spoke about how trillion-dollar markets. And on the design front, Amit, very good points on flexibility, mobility, how tech use, how touchless, and how companies are increasing their collab spaces within their designs. So that was interesting. Sustainability, everybody agreed that its sense of urgency has definitely picked up in sustainability. Green power will become a must eventually. Focus on ratings to start with. Vinod and Ravi both spoke about that. Tenants need to be willing to be paying that extra buck if they need to meet their company's sustainable goals. And Amit said you'll soon start hearing about net zero buildings. So thank you, Sapna, and back to you.
Thanks, Ramesh. That was a wonderful sum up of this entire discussion that we had. So thanks our speakers also, Mr. Amit Ramani, Mr. Amit Grover joining us, and Mr. Juggy, Marwaha, Ravi, Ahuja being here with us, Vinod, Rohira. Always a pleasure to have you all. And Mr. Ramesh Nair, always, a wonderful moderation of the panel and bringing the best views and opinions for our audience. Thank you so much for taking those questions and for sharing your views. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.